The lounge was dim and near silent, just the way I needed it. A half-filled glass of red wine sat in my hand, my second that night. Maybe third. I had stopped keeping track. Strangely, I wasn't even tipsy. The alcohol slid down like water, refusing to touch the storm inside me. I wasn't drinking to celebrate, and I wasn't drinking to unwind. I was drinking to forget. But the numbness wouldn't come. Not tonight. Not after the words I'd heard hours earlier. If it had been any other evening, I might have admired the space. The walls were brick, the air smelled faintly of old whiskey and lemon polish, and the golden light spilling from the overhead fixtures gave the bar an almost sacred warmth. But tonight, nothing could reach me. Not the music humming low from the jukebox. Not the polished mahogany counter beneath my fingers. It was supposed to be a quick visit, just a routine check at the company clinic during lunch. I remember being annoyed at the delay, tapping my foot while scrolling through unanswered emails. I expected stamps and signatures, nothing more. Instead, the doctor looked me in the eye and said the words that cracked my life in half. "We need to talk." He was an older man, silver threading his short-cropped hair, eyes too gentle for the words about to come. He asked me to sit down, and I knew right then my life was about to split. His voice was calm, deliberate, the kind you want to trust. But the words he spoke were a dagger. Breast cancer. Aggressive. Already spreading. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't try to wrap it in false hope. He laid out numbers like stones I'd have to carry. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. 6 months if I delayed, maybe 9 if I was lucky. A year at best if everything went perfectly. I nodded as if I understood, thanked him as though he'd done me a kindness, then walked out like a shadow wearing my skin. At the office, I typed into spreadsheets, answered calls, played my part as though I hadn't just been handed an expiration date. The truth didn't hit until I reached home. The moment the front door shut behind me, the air grew heavier. My husband was slouched on the couch, controller in hand, TV blasting. "Dinner," he muttered, eyes never leaving the screen. I didn't answer. I walked past him, into the bedroom, locked the door, then let the first tear fall. It wasn't death that broke me. Not yet. It was the years wasted. 2 decades dragging a lifeless marriage across my back, convincing myself that if I carried enough, if I endured enough, somehow one day I'd be seen. But the truth was written all over my chest now, in the ache of a tumor that had made a home inside me. Nobody had ever really looked. I sat on the edge of the bed, my work clothes wrinkled and suffocating, the straps tight against a body betraying me. My husband hadn't always been this way, or maybe he had, and I just refused to see it. When we first met, he'd been charming in that effortless way, guitar slung over his shoulder, smile soft enough to convince me he had depth. I was young, hopeful, working through accounting school, living off canned soup and borrowed faith. He made the struggle feel worth it. But charm fades. Beauty dissolves. What's left is character, and he never had much to begin with. He moved in before we even married, promising we were building a life together. But I was the builder. He was just there, always there, watching, consuming, but never lifting a brick. He found new obsessions every month. Online courses promising 6 figures from home, get-rich-quick schemes, seminars about manifesting wealth. Always with his hand out, always pleading. "This one will change everything," he swore as he begged me to cover $2,000 we didn't have. I paid the bill. 2 weeks later, he called it a scam and slid right back onto the couch, controller in hand, like nothing had happened. Rent, bills, groceries, the very roof over our heads, I carried it all. Even the console he wasted his life on was bought with my overtime checks. When our daughter, Nia, was born, it was me waking at 3 a.m. for feedings. Me rushing back to work 8 weeks after childbirth so the bank wouldn't repossess our house. Me running between doctor's appointments and late-night deadlines. He would occasionally warm leftovers, drop off a glass of water, and act like he'd saved me from a burning building. His mother never once held him accountable. My sweet boy, she called him well into his 30s. Every time I confronted him, she was on the phone an hour later, warning me not to crush his spirit. Spirit? He had none left to crush. His mother finally pulled strings, landing him a city job assisting visiting officials. It should have been perfect, schmoozing, dressing nice, pretending to matter. But even that he botched. Called the mayor's young wife his daughter. Forgot to relay messages that left people humiliated. Within months, they let him go. Too much liability, they said. That was the last time he tried. He stopped even pretending. Noon wake-ups, sweatpants, endless complaints about construction noise outside. Meanwhile, I clocked 60-hour weeks to keep the lights on. Once, I told him he'd be responsible for dinner and cleaning. He waved his hand, smirking like a king granting mercy. That lasted 3 days. Even Nia noticed. At 20, juggling school and a part-time job, she still managed to do more around the house than him. One night, after a late shift, she walked in to find me scrubbing the kitchen floor. She glanced at him, sprawled on the couch, and said flatly, "If you're gonna be useless, at least don't be in the way." He didn't even flinch, just paused his game, glanced at her, and turned back to the screen. My daughter had grown up watching me carry us all, and she was learning never to repeat my mistake. Nia was my one miracle in a life that had hardened. Born in the middle of a snowstorm in a rundown hospital on the south side, she clutched my finger with a tiny hand that felt like salvation. He held her once, maybe twice, before retreating back to his distractions. But she was mine. I swore she'd never feel the loneliness I'd known. Never question if she mattered. Every honor roll ribbon, every award, every report card, those were my oxygen. I skipped lunches to afford her violin lessons. Worked late nights so she could attend the best schools. She didn't disappoint. Brilliant, sharp, determined. She got into a strong university just outside the city, majoring in public administration. Real change comes from inside, she told me, eyes shining with the kind of hope I'd long since buried. She worked at a flower shop to pay for books, never complained, never faltered. Late at night, I'd watch her bent over her laptop, earbuds in, mouthing her presentations. All fire, all determination, but still soft enough to ask, "How are you doing, Mom?" And when she asked, she meant it. She saw me. She saw what even her father refused to. I used to tell myself I stayed for her, that even a useless father was better than none. But she saw through it long before I could admit it to myself. When she brought home her boyfriend, Devin, I bristled. He looked too soft, too easygoing. Another man who might clip her wings. But then I watched him. He listened. He respected her voice. He didn't try to impress me. He simply showed up for her. "Do you want a life like mine?" I asked her once. "A man who drains while you break yourself to feed him?" She smiled. "Devin's not like that, Mom. He actually shows up." Her father hated Devin, of course. Said he was weak. Said she could do better. The irony of it nearly choked me. One night, Nia looked him square in the eye and said, "Don't worry, Dad. I'm not planning on marrying anyone like you." I should have stepped in. Should have softened the blow. But I stayed silent, stirring soup at the stove, while my daughter reclaimed her voice in the very house where mine had been buried. That was the night I realized she'd already decided. She'd never walk the same path I had. It was a Tuesday night when everything cracked. Dinner had been reheated pasta, eaten more out of habit than hunger. He shoveled it down like he'd worked a 12-hour shift, then asked if we were out of cookies. That was it. I stood at the sink, hand submerged in lukewarm water, staring at greasy dishes. Behind me, gunfire crackled from his video game. Something in me snapped. I dried my hands, walked into the living room, and stood in front of the TV. He leaned sideways, trying to see past me. "Can you move?" "I went to the doctor today," I said quietly. That got his attention. He paused the game, eyes narrowing with annoyance. "Yeah? What for?" My chest burned as I forced the words out. "I have cancer. Breast. Stage 3. It's spread." For a second, nothing. Then he shrugged. "Damn. That sucks. That's all you have to say?" My voice trembled. He sighed. "What do you want me to do, cry? You're stubborn. You'll probably outlive us all just to prove a point." I stared at him, disbelief scorching hotter than grief. Then I turned, grabbed a laundry basket, and started pulling his clothes from the closet. He appeared in the hallway as I dragged the basket to the balcony. "What the hell are you doing?" "Freeing myself." Before he could stop me, shirts, pants, socks went sailing into the night. Boxers fluttered down like pitiful white flags. A couple walking their dog stopped, staring as a hoodie landed at their feet. I didn't care. I wanted the world to see me purge him from my life. He grabbed my arm, panicked. "You've lost your damn mind." I yanked away, eyes blazing.
No.
"What I've lost is 20 years I'll never get back." "You're insane," he sputtered. "You need help." "No, what I need is peace."
Air.
"Space to breathe without stepping over your dirty socks." "I need to survive, and I can't do that with you draining me like a parasite." His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping. Then he did what he always did. He called his mother. "Mama," he whined into the phone. "She's throwing my stuff off the balcony. Come get me." I slammed the door before he finished. For the first time in 20 years, the silence that followed didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. It didn't take long. Maybe 40 minutes after he called, there were heavy footsteps pounding down the hall. His mother didn't knock. She pounded, 3 sharp bursts like the police. I opened the door to find her, face red, coat half falling off her shoulder, curls bouncing with rage. "What the hell is going on?" she barked, storming past me into the apartment. "My son says you've lost your damn mind. He can explain while he's picking socks out of the bushes." I shot back. Her arms flailed like she owned the place. "I knew it. I knew something was wrong with you. My poor boy gives you the best years of his life, and this is how you treat him." I almost laughed. The best years of his life? He's been living off me like a barnacle. He was trying. He has potential. He just needed more time. 20 years wasn't enough? Her face tightened. She dropped her voice into that condescending lilt she used when trying to assert control. "Sweetheart, marriage is hard. You've always been the stable one. Don't let drama ruin you." I folded my arms. "I'm stable enough to know I don't want to babysit a grown man while I'm dying." Her eyes flickered. "What do you mean, dying?" "I have cancer," I said flatly. "Stage 3. It's spread." For a second, something passed over her face. Shock, maybe even fear. But it vanished just as quickly. Then, in a voice so calm it chilled me, she asked, "So, if something happens to you, this apartment goes to him, right?" I blinked, stunned. "Are you serious?" "Well, you wouldn't want him homeless. This is his home, too." "No," I snapped. "It's my home. Every square foot paid with my sweat. And don't worry, I've already filed for divorce." Her lips trembled. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious." Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You'll regret this." "I've regretted a lot," I said, opening the door wide. "But putting myself first won't be one of them." She stormed out, heels clicking down the hallway like punctuation marks of rage. I shut the door and leaned against it, breathing for the first time in years. The silence wasn't empty, it was mine. But before the peace could settle, there was another knock. Softer this time. Hesitant. I already knew who it was.
Only my daughter knocked like that.
"Mom?" Nia's voice trembled as I opened the door. Her eyes were red, face pale, hands shaking as she clutched her phone. She stepped inside without waiting. "Dad called me," she blurted. "Said you threw him out. That you're losing it. And then he said something about you being sick." I led her into the kitchen, to the small table where I'd once helped her with math homework, folded holiday napkins, whispered bedtime stories when bills kept me too stressed to sleep. The apartment was a wreck, clothes strewn, lavender cleaner still clinging to the air. But she was here, and for the first time that night, I wasn't alone. She sat across from me, voice breaking. "Please don't lie. Are you really sick?" I nodded slowly.
Yes.
"Breast cancer. Stage 3. It's in my lymph nodes." Her face crumpled. She reached across the table, gripping my hand with the same desperation she'd had as a little girl with scraped knees. But this time, I couldn't make it better. "How bad is it?" she whispered. I met her eyes. It's bad, but I'm not giving up. Tears spilled as she pulled me into her arms. I can't lose you, Mom. You're all I have. Her body trembled against mine. I held her tight, my little girl who had grown into a woman strong enough to hold me now. For a moment, we just breathed together, mother and daughter, bound by grief and love. Then suddenly, she pulled back, wiping her eyes with a trembling hand. Her lips quivered, but this time it wasn't only grief. "There's something I need to tell you," she whispered. My brow furrowed. "What is it?" "I'm pregnant." The words struck like thunder in a quiet room. I blinked, stunned. "You're what?" She nodded quickly, tears still wet on her cheeks. "It's early, just a few weeks. I was going to wait until things settled, but now I needed you to know." For a long moment I just stared. My breath caught. After months of nothing but decay and loss, joy slipped into my chest like sunlight breaking through clouds. "You're going to have a baby," I whispered. She nodded again. "And you're going to be a grandmother." A laugh burst from me, raw and breathless. "Well, hell, I guess I better not die then." Her smile broke through tears. "No, you better not." And just like that, I had something to live for. The next morning, I called my doctor and spoke the words I had avoided for weeks. "I'm ready to fight." Surgery was scheduled immediately. For the first time, I wasn't preparing to die. I was preparing to live. But before healing, there was one more thing I needed to face. Something I had ignored for far too long. That Monday, I walked into the office, not as the quiet, dependable worker they knew, but as a woman who had carried too much and survived more than any spreadsheet could measure. My hands trembled when I knocked on my boss's door. He barely looked up. "I thought you were taking leave." "I am," I said firmly. "But before that, I need to talk." I laid it out. 9 years without a raise. Weekends worked, mistakes cleaned, crises solved, loyalty unbroken. "I need a raise," I said, voice steady. "Not just for money. For the principle. For my worth." For a long pause, he just studied me. Then he nodded. "All right. We'll see what can be done." I left his office with my heart racing. For once, I hadn't shrunk. I had demanded, and I had been heard. The days before surgery felt lighter than they should have. My apartment, once suffocating, was peaceful now. Andrew was gone. His mother's calls had stopped. Sunlight poured across clean sheets. A vase of daisies from Nia sat on the window ledge. And then there was Elijah. He worked in IT, quiet, steady, always polite. He'd fixed my computer half a dozen times over the years, each time asking how I was. Not in the empty way people do, but like he meant it. After Andrew left, he started bringing me coffee. At first, I thought it was pity. Then one night, after a late shift, he offered to drive me home. We sat outside my building in his beat-up Toyota, soft jazz humming low. I looked at him, the warmth in his smile, the gentle lines at his eyes, and something inside me stirred, something I thought cancer had killed. I reached out, touched his face, and kissed him. It wasn't fireworks. It was real. Quiet, steady, honest. That night, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I slept knowing maybe, just maybe, the best parts of my story weren't over yet. After surgery, everything slowed. The city's chaos gave way to quiet mornings and cicadas humming at dusk. I left the city for a while, returning to my mother's small cottage with its white shutters and wild roses climbing the porch rail. Mama welcomed me home like I was still her little girl. No questions. No judgment. Just arms wide open and a pot of chicken soup already simmering. "You look tired," she said gently. "I am," I admitted. "Then rest," she whispered. "Let the quiet mend what life broke." Her house smelled of lemon oil and old books. The creaky floors felt familiar beneath my feet. I slept in my childhood room. Wallpaper faded, but memories intact. Friends I hadn't seen in years found me. Valerie, my old classmate turned teacher, hugged me like no time had. It started with nausea. Sharp, unshakable waves that came mostly in the morning, sometimes at night. At first I brushed it off. After all, chemo had twisted my body into something unrecognizable. This had to just be leftovers from the storm. But the exhaustion that followed felt different. Bone deep, unexplainable. One evening, while folding laundry with Mama, the smell of lavender fabric softener hit me like a wall. My stomach lurched. I ran to the bathroom and emptied myself into the sink. When I came back pale, Mama was watching me carefully. "Helen," she asked softly, "when was your last period?" I froze. I hadn't even thought about it. With surgery, stress, treatments, I had lost track. The next morning, I sat in a cold clinic room, staring at sterile walls. When the doctor walked in with a strange smile, his words shattered me all over again. "Congratulations. You're 6, maybe 7 weeks pregnant." Pregnant, I whispered. At 42. After cancer. After everything. It didn't make sense. Yet it was true. I sat in the car afterward, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Tears slid down my cheeks, not from fear this time, but from awe. Maybe, just maybe, life wasn't done with me yet. I stared at Elijah's name on my phone for a long time, thumb hovering.
He deserved to know.
Finally, I texted, "Can we meet for coffee? There's something I need to tell you." We met at a quiet cafe, sunlight dripping in through wide windows. My hands trembled as I sipped tea, waiting. When he arrived, calm as ever in a gray jacket, I almost forgot how to breathe. We made small talk.
Work.
Weather. The kind of filler words people use when they're circling something bigger. Then I said it. "I'm pregnant." He blinked, stunned, then leaned back slowly. I rushed to explain. "I'm not asking anything from you. I just thought you should know." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, warm and steady. His eyes met mine, and in them I saw something I hadn't dared hope for: tenderness, possibility, a quiet promise. That night, I stood at my apartment window, city lights blinking in the distance. I pressed a hand to my belly, then another to the glass. Months ago, I had been surviving. Shrinking.
Silent.